Okay, so once we've got our ball bouncing in a convincing kind of way, we've done a little bit of work on our function curves so that we've got a correct bounce off the ground here. One thing I didn't do when I was creating this animation was I didn't really take too much care with how I positioned the ball. So if I go to where the ball is on the ground and zoom in a little bit, I can see that my ball is just going through the ground a little bit there. I just did it by eye when I was doing the initial positioning. If I want to be accurate with where that ball is positioned, what I can do is I can go into my timeline, I can select the keyframe. This is the keyframe where the ball is on the ground, and this is this Y position that I've animated, up and down direction. Now my sphere that I've created, it's got a radius of 100 centimeters. That means if I want it sitting exactly on the floor, I need to move it up 50 units. 100 units, 100 centimeters. I can select a keyframe and it will show me in the attribute editor the value of that keyframe. The keyframe is at frame 50. The key value is 91.984 centimeters. It needs to be 100 if I want my ball sitting exactly on the ground. The radius of the ball is 100, so if I want it to sit on the ground, it needs to be 100 units up in the air. Anything other than that, and it's going to be through the ground or above the ground. So one thing that's really handy is that we can set keyframes, and it doesn't even matter if the value isn't exactly right. We can go back and select other keyframes, and for all of these keyframes where I know that the ball needs to hit the ground, all of these keyframes, the value should be 100. So I can go through and I can actually do multiple keyframes at once. I can select these two, and under their value I can type in 100, hit enter, and now for each of these keyframes the ball will be exactly on the ground. So that's a really useful feature to know about, is that you can select a keyframe and you can change the value of that, whatever it is that you're changing. If I wanted the ball to be bouncing perfectly the same height every single time, I could go to my first keyframe here and say it was 1,100 centimeters up in the air, and I'll make these keyframes all exactly the same. So I can type in 1,100, hit enter, and now the ball I know is going to be in exactly the same place every time. So as well as just positioning things in our viewport by eye, we can actually be quite accurate. And sometimes working in 3D, accuracy is important because we have objects that interact with each other or need to be in certain positions. So it's great to be able to access the actual values of the data for any keyframe.